balancing your spiritual work and your business? How's that been? Do you still have challenges?
You'll always have challenges. In life, to try and balance, you'll find that one side will not necessarily benefit to the extent that it should, and the other side will maybe benefit more. And remember, it's not just about impilo yokuba ngugobela. It's also the fact that yes, I run my own business. I sit on boards, and that's demanding as well. I also have a family. I've got children, I've got family, I've got friends, and to try and balance all those different aspects of your life is not necessarily easy. But what I always say is that you need to be very organized and choose as to what is important when. And choose also to say, if I don't do a particular thing at a certain time, what is the implication of that? And also try and find that there is that kind of balance, but it's very difficult to have the right balance. And sometimes you're very tired and exhausted. I mean, I sit on board and I have to travel to Cape Town, and you'll find that I'll go to Cape Town, come back very late, and if there's an issue around Umtwana Wedlozi in the middle of the night, you have to wake up. Nobody cares that you are not feeling well or you are too tired or you've had a hectic week. And at the same time, you've got your own children who sometimes suffer because when you've got other people's kids on your property, you sort of prioritize them because you don't want anything to go wrong. And in your mind, you say to yourself, they are here for a short period of time, relatively short period of time, let's say half a year or so, and therefore let me give them all the time that I can. In the meantime, your children will suffer, and some of the things that you need to do for yourself will be compromised.
Um, could you please tell us a little bit about the role of a sangoma in society? In your opinion, what is the role of a sangoma in society?
I think what is critical to me is that sangomas have always been there. Before Christianity, they were there, go koko gazibetu, no koko betu, and they were playing a very important role, not only from a healing perspective, but also they were the counselors. They were the ones who were able to pray for rain, for instance, wuti ibe ine imvula, so that the plants that they plant should be able to grow. So it was a multifaceted role that they play. And even today, it's the same. It's just that ubungoma and traditional healing has been looked down upon, and yet 80% of Black South Africans do visit a traditional healer at some point in time. Whether it's somebody othandazelayo, that's traditional healing. Whether umuntu osebenzisa amayeza, inyanga, whether it's sangoma from a divinity perspective, in terms of being able to read what is happening in your life, be able to come up with a diagnosis, come up with solutions and an action plan in terms of what you need to do. And that is good because you'll find that doctors will treat what you tell them is happening to you. When somebody goes to a sangoma, you don't have to spell out, Gucci, this is why I'm here. The sangoma will be able to tell you what is happening in your life, what the issues are, what the root cause of that is, and what the solution should be to correct it. A doctor will basically give you the bazopopola, and then they'll be able to say, okay, this is what is wrong with you based on the diagnosis that they've done, and go ahead and use the medication or whatever treatment they give you. And yet, Isango will be able to tell you why what is happening to you is happening. So it's not only about the what, it's also about why what is happening to you.
Could you tell us a bit about the different classifications of traditional healers and how they work in their separate practices?
So from where I'm sitting, for instance, I said Kukona course, which is what I did in Durban. It's divination because amacourse asebenza basically ngempepho, amakhandlela namanzi, bakwazi to get messages in their head and be able to prescribe what needs to be done. Kube khona abanye basebenzisa namathambo, which is what you use, but abantu flow x-ray to be able to ascertain what is wrong with somebody. And then kube khona umnguni idlozi lase esitabeni, idlozi lasemahlathini. Those are the people who are able to kusebenzisa namayeza baphose namathambo so that you can be able to find out what is wrong with somebody and then be able to put together medication. Those ones have to go through that training yobungoma through ukuthiwa uthwasa umnguni. Kube khona umndawu. Umndawu idlozi lasemanzini, and normally kuye kuthiwa idlozi foreign dlozi. And those ones bahlala emanzini, and then you also use amanzi kuwasebenzisa bayafemba, and they're able to get rid of negative energy. Kube khona isithunywa ubuprofethi, where you are able to use the Bible ukuhlahluba and diagnose first somebody. You are able to use amanzi You are able to also use what I would call is washo to be able to treat somebody. Then you've got inyanga. Inyanga mostly is somebody who doesn't have to go through the training process. Yokuba sisangoma, they just know ditlhare nesisuthi amayeza, and they're able to use those herbs to heal people. They can combine concoctions and be able to heal people. There are all sorts of other types of ukuphilisa abantu. Khona abantu abanabalozi. Those are the people that have whispering happening in their ears, and they're able to translate the messages and be able to give them to somebody. And then I'm sure there are others as well, because this exists not only in South Africa, not only in Southern Africa, including about Zimbabwe, but also the rest of the continent. They will have different ways of healing people, and that is traditional healing. So it's quite vast.
Can you explain also the process of ubizo, just the definition of the term and how it can occur differently for different people?
Ubiza is basically a calling. Yeah, that's what they call it in English. And as I said to you, I knew later on that I was called from a very early age, but I did not understand it. And in fact, in the Bible, they talk about, in Jeremiah, I think it talks about the fact that you are called even before you are born out of your mother's womb. So it's known you've already been anointed. It's your ancestors who are able to say, I want so and so to be able to do this work, so that they can be our hands, they can be our feet, our eyes, our ears, to be able to carry on the legacy. And unfortunately, and normally what happens is that runs in the family. It runs in the lineage where in some generations there were people who were able to heal people. And like royalty, they don't want for it to just be forgotten. It needs to be passed on from one generation to the next generation. And unfortunately, what has happened is that because of Christianity and people being told that ubungoma and their calling is demonic, it is negative, is not Christian like, people have forgotten or they've decided not to carry on their calling. And that's why you find that in some families, things are just destroyed, and the wealth that used to be there is totally gone. And when people come here and we check, we find that these people in 4 or 5 generations back, they actually had healers in the family. And because nobody wanted to take on the calling, then everything falls apart. So it's something that you don't choose, you don't apply for, you get anointed long before you were born, and it has to be taken from one generation to the next. What is key then, once you know that you've got the calling, is that you find hopefully the right person who's going to help you in terms of training you how to work with your madlozi, the ones who have anointed you, so that you can be able to understand when they communicate with you, you can understand when they give you instructions, you can be able to get tools, a toolkit, a toolbox that's going to enable you to be able to work. As I said earlier on, the toolbox can be junior, where you prophesy, you're able to work ngamanzi, ngeziwasho, umngun nomdawu, where you're able to work emanzini, you're able to go ezintabeni yopimithi.
And you mentioned the thing of Christianity blocking our understanding of ubungoma. Can you talk about a little bit about the origins of that and how you think that came that the way that it played a role in separating us from our African spirituality?
You know, long before Christianity came to our shores, people knew uNkulunkulu, Umvelinqangi, Mudimo, the different names that they are called throughout the continent of Africa. And we're able to pray to God so that He could be able to answer our questions. And it's not something new, it's not something that came with Christianity. Where Christianity came in, it came in with the Bible and the birth of Jesus Christ, who then had to substitute our ancestors, that they would say, no, you only have to focus on Jesus Christ. And I've got a view on that. I believe that Jesus Christ is for the Jews. We've got our own God that was there before Christianity came. He's still there today, and we worship God. And then we've got our ancestors, like people will say, "Uthixo, wobaba wethu, okhokho bethu," because God is also for otatomkhulu bethu, okhokho bethu, okhokokazi bethu. And for me, they play a more important role in terms of the connection that I have with them, and the fact that they are in spirit and they have a connection with God. They are God's children as well, but then they are able to fast track certain of the things because their blood runs in you, and therefore they want to have a relationship with you. So by Christianity coming in to say it's paganism to think about your ancestors, it's backward. You are now educated, you have to think of Jesus Christ. So that for me, I see it as a substitution, which basically weakened us, because I truly believe that it is important to acknowledge your ancestors who are also God's kids, you don't worship them. You acknowledge and honor them. God is the key, who was there before the Bible came and hit us, and God is the one that we worship. So it's very important for you as a person to have a strong relationship with God, and also understand that you've got a relationship with your ancestors. You honor and worship, you honor them, but not worship them. And they also have a relationship with God. And when you've got a situation like that, you've got a very strong foundation. The problem is that people they've given up on their ancestors, and yet ancestors are still there and they're God's children as well, but they've already passed on their spirit. They have a very strong relationship with God, which is fantastic. And then this bond between them and their ancestors has been replaced by no, Jesus Christ is the only way to God. And I'm saying your ancestors play a role as well. You don't worship them, you honor them, you remember them, and that helps. And I think that's what happened. And of course, the tool to do that was the Bible. And it's not doesn't mean that I don't believe in the Bible. And it's a pity that when the Bible is spoken about, people will tend to want to focus on the New Testament and not talk about the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, God and what happened then acknowledged the role of ancestors where offerings were given, certain rituals were done, and the acknowledgement of the different generations of someone's life was very important as well. And I always say, if you look at the first book of Matthew, the whole first chapter of Matthew talks about the genealogy of Jesus Christ. If ancestors are not important, who have been now named to be demons and they're in the past, let them sleep. So why is it being spoken about in the first chapter of Matthew? And also in the same Matthew, I know that there are there are areas where they talk about Jesus Christ did not come to this world to change the things that were being done in the Old Testament. He came to fortify or to enrich them or to enhance them.
And can you tell us a bit about your gifts and also then how you help to nurture the gifts of those that you train?
The gifts will be different. What I always say to people that come here to be trained is that you're coming here with your own madros, your ancestors, and whatever it is that they've bestowed upon you. You're not coming here to buy izinto like I. So our role, me as a Gobela, my role is to be able to facilitate that connection between you and your ancestors so that you understand them. You are able to work with them. You are able to get the messages in terms of what they want you to do. And you are able to honor them in the manner that they want you to honor them. There will be a basic, what I would call, training package that you need to go through, which we say are the toolkits that you get so that you can operate. The one, as I said, umguni, which I explained earlier on, to be able to hlahluba ngamatambo, and that's the basic kanye namayeza, philisa abantu. The second one, umdawu being the one okusebenza emanzini, ukufemba, so that you can be able to operate using that. The third one is propheto, ukuthi isithunywa uyakwazi ukusebenza abantu ufunda iBhayibheli and be able to get their stories from that, and you're also able to use amanzi neziwasha to work with them. So those three you will do. If I give an example, for instance, I'll say when one goes to study medicine, everybody has to go through MBCH. Whether you're going to qualify later on as a gynecologist, dentist, whatever it is that you qualify as, you need to go through the basics. So those we say are the basics, and then everybody has to go through them. Then, if for instance your gift is around being a pediatrician to deal with children, then your ancestors will be able to give you the formula to say in your dreams or they talk to you, these are the things you need to do to be able to treat abantwana. And then if at all they want to trust, say like in my case, they said to me, you've done course, you've now done this ibasic umngunumdawu nesithunywa, but we want you to train people, abantwana bedlozi. So for me, that's not something that I had expected, and actually I resisted it for quite a while because it's a huge responsibility. Those people's livelihoods will depend on you from in terms of their spiritual life, and if anything goes wrong, you will be blamed for it. So I resisted it. So that's the angle that my ancestors sent me along. So when people come here, they will get the basic training, the three that I mentioned. And then in addition to that, we'll also listen through them in terms of what the ancestors are saying with regard to what routes they should take. And I also sometimes quote with Corinthians, the First Corinthians chapter 12, from verse 1 to 11, where they talk about, it's from 4 to 11, where they talk about the different spiritual gifts that you get, and all of them come from God. Some are to teach, which is what I do. Some are to ukuthi ubone izinto zabantu, prophesy. Some are to talk in tongues. Some are to do all sorts of things that are defined in that book. And they say that all those come from God. So we will give you the basics, then the specialization will come through what we hear you tell us, and we can check as well whether it's true in terms of what your ancestors want you to do.
And then what would you say to, because now we, as the young generation in Africa, we're now slowly awakening to also our indigenous African spirituality, and we all are now looking to build a relationship with our ancestors, but with a lot of us are not sure how. What would you say to somebody who is a young person who wants to build a relationship with their ancestors? What is it? What are the important things for them to do?
You know what I say to somebody is to say you've got your mom or your grandmother. Then they pass on, and all of a sudden they're no longer important. And I say to them, when your mom was alive, what would you do on their birthday? What do you do on a daily basis? You call them, have a conversation with them, update them on what's happening in your life. You will, on special days, do special things for them. You will visit them. Those are the things that you do. Now, in this case, what you say, it doesn't have to change. It's exactly the same that you use to accept their in spirit. And therefore, what do you do on their birthday? You have itianyana to say, this is to remember you, mom. I'm doing this in your honor. And you can invite whoever it is that you want to have come and join us. On their special days, you can decide, which I'm going to go to their tombstone, to their grave, to go and say hello, and you sit there and you talk to them, update them, because they are in spirit, they're everywhere, they can be able to hear you, but that's where you located them when when they passed on. And then you can, on a regular sort of time frame, you can be able to communicate with them. Thina-ke, when we communicate nabantu abadala, we use this name, we can use impepho, we can also use candles. And you light a candle, mom, I'm lighting this candle for you, and I need to have a connection with you. So though it's basic things that you do when they are alive, except because they are gone now and they are in spirit, you do them maybe slightly differently.
Could you please explain some of the most important rituals to do for people to be aligned with their ancestors?
You know, some of the challenges that we see when people come here, because remember we said we will be able to tell you without you telling us, which you would tell a doctor it's painful here, and I can't sleep at night, whatever. We don't ask you. We will launch into this is what's happening in your life, all the different facets of your life, whether it's financial, relationships, production, or reproduction, or things that are happening in your life. And then what is critical is to say we need to understand why what is happening. And that is the root cause. The root cause, in most cases, has to do with exactly what you're talking about. Things that have not been done properly, things that need to be corrected, just so that you can align and make sure that your ancestors are at peace. What are those things? For instance, umntwana mayezalwa, imbeleko is very important. I'm not sure whether it's done differently in different cultures, but basically, in my understanding of the Xhosa and Zulu culture, imbeleko is like when umntwana is born, they will slaughter an animal, and the skin of the animal is going to be iyashukwa, and then that's what is used ukuthi umntwana abelekwe ngayo. But the significance of that ritual is to ensure that you introduce this baby to the ancestors. Uti, this is now the new addition to the family, and we're asking you to look after this new addition because this addition is part of us, and please make sure that their life flourishes and that there are no blockages in their life. And then there are certain things that are done where you take inyongo and sprinkle it on the child, and in some cases, ufake nesiphandla, a skin, a part of the skin of that animal. That is critical because you're now taking this child and making sure that they are incorporated into the family. Then there are other things that gets done. For instance, when a girl, when she goes through a certain period, and certain rituals. For instance, when they start becoming a woman, you do certain rituals. And then for instance, they're going to get married, esiZulwini, for instance, I recently did umemulo for my daughter who's 30, who just decided, I want umemulo for my 30th, which for me was a bit of a shocker, but that's what she wanted. And we needed to make sure that it was done to the T, because umemulo is basically a process of getting the young lady to become a woman, and it also opens up to say to suitors, that this one is now available, that you won't listen to opening up to suitors. But that's what it is. And there you slaughter a cow, there is a goat that precedes the cow, there's certain rituals that get done, and it needs to be done well. And again, it involves your ancestors and making sure that they look after you because you're part of this big family, whether it's a family that's alive or a family that has passed on. So those are the rituals. Umntwana mayizalwa imbeleko very critical, passing on from being a young girl to a young woman. And obviously, if you go through umshado, there are certain things ezenziwayo. And this thing of white wedding, that is should be secondary to the traditional side where you're taking the one side of the family and the other side of the family, you combine them. Kwenziwa ngeimbuzi and certain things get done. When the young lady goes to the groom side, inyongo nalapho plays a very important role, which means she's now being assimilated into that family. Those things are very critical. And when we don't do them, those are the things, then there are exchanges of gifts. Afika umuntu kuthiwe nembeleko azange wenzele. They go and ask emuva kuthiwe no, it wasn't done. Kuthiwe no, mawushada, we don't see, you guys don't come through as if you are married because there was no exchange of gifts. Certain things were not done. Yes, it wasn't done because we did the white wedding. All those things that happen when a woman is pregnant. There are certain rituals also that get done.
Can you please also explain, because there's certain things that are, when we look at African spirituality, are seen as barbaric. Things like slaughtering. Can you please also explain the importance um, of offerings in that sense?
If you look at the Old Testament, it happened. So why should it be barbaric now? Then it means the Bible itself is barbaric. Because you've got situations where people go to the mountain, they slaughter. If you look at the book of Leviticus, for instance, whether it's a grain offering, whether it is an animal offering, it will give you instructions in terms of how it gets done, and we stick to those instructions. So, in my view, it's not barbaric, it's what people choose to call it. Because there are written documents that give us instructions in terms of how it needs to be done.
Could you tell us a bit about the process of becoming a Gobela, and what that required of you, and the ceremonies that had to happen in order for that to happen?
It starts off. Let me start from the beginning. As I said, you've got a calling. Then, if you're lucky, when you're lucky, or when your ancestors want to then lead you to the person that's going to help you in terms of training you and giving you those toolkits that I spoke about. And you will experience a whole lot of things that will give you a sense that you need to heed your calling. For instance, things like the dreams that you have, dreaming of water, dreaming of snakes, dreaming of the ancestors, your people coming and giving you very clear instructions, dreaming of yourself flying and seeing, and also what happens to your life, where your life just all of a sudden becomes dermakar, in terms of the kind of situations that you find yourself in. So there are all sorts of things. As I said to you, for me, it was like, how can my life just change like this within 6 months? Until I went to that lady to say, but this is what you need to do. Then you are navigated to the person. Other people dream the person that they dream of the person that's going to train them. Others are navigated to that person, and they need to feel comfortable that they are at home, spiritual home. So you go through the process of Ubutwasa, the pathway, which will take about, let's say, 4 months to 6 months. Then from there, we are Goduswa, and then it will depend on whether you've got the money, because Goduswa is also expensive in terms of there's a cow that's involved. There is also sometimes transport. You may have to buy drinks for people depending on the numbers that are there. You need to feed the people that are there. There are certain elements that you need to produce for that. So then that is your home going. And that is also an extensive affair because it's critical. You are now being taken from here and telling your mother, which is now finished, this person is now finished with the role that you had come here to play in terms of being trained on how to treat people, respect themselves, respect amadlozi, how to conduct rituals, all the specific rituals that need to be done, etc., etc. And then they get taken home to say, now we brought back your child, here's your child, their family receive them. Then after umuntu egodukile, depending on what your ancestors want you to do, you'll find that there'll be the kind of people that get sent your way are people who need to trust, and which was the case in my situation. Then with those people, then you realize that, this is what they want me to do. Then there's another step that you need to follow. We normally recommend that everybody follows the same step, but normally the people that are under pressure are the ones who have to train other people. So that is Uglobola Impande, which means you're now getting your own franchise, which enables you to be able to run your own operation and be able to train your own children. And you can do that independently, but we always recommend that you're able to manage a relationship with your own Gobela so that it's a bigger bandla. So once you've done that, that's also another expense because you have to go to a Malelane, in our case, Impande Yetu, which is the source of the treatment that we use when we twasisa abantwana bethu. And then also that involves also a cow, that involves a goat and some chickens, and then you go into the forest and you're able to be shown this is where your mpande is, so that you can also show it to your own children. So that's also an expense that needs to be catered for. Then you come back, and then you come back and bring your mpande to your home, and there are rituals that are done to do that as well. And then your Gobela, and the proof of that is that you will find abantwana babantu who come through here for a reading, then they find out what the issue is and what they need to do and the fact that they need to trust us. And then they can decide where they go to go that training. But when as a Gobela, you've already been trained, remember all these different stages, and you've already operated in your own Dumba even before you Lobola Impande. And now it's just about making sure that you've got the capacity and the capability to train others so that they can also be able to follow through with the requirements of their ancestors.
And how do you keep these two lifestyles separate? How do you incorporate your spirituality now into your everyday life? Things that don't even necessarily have to do with Twasisa Bane. How do you incorporate your spirituality into your everyday life?
Initially, I had thought that I'm going to have Nzobai Sangoma, TK box, and then I go back to my life. So in my mind, those were two different work streams, as people call it. But with time, I've realized that it's one life, and the two are intertwined in the person that I am. Whether I'm in the boardroom discussing very important business related issues, my madlozis are still there. I know, and I can tell you why I know. I know because all of a sudden I'll get umoya, upagame in that environment, and I know there's something, there are messages they want to bring. Then I have to quickly take ebhedini yami, going to the bathroom, thokozani bantu abadala, ngisemhlanganweni, ngicela sihlangane ekhaya bese sokwazi ukuthi silungise ekhaya, or I'll start burping in the meeting or yawning because I know the signs that tell me that they are around me and that they want to communicate. So it's very difficult to say you separate the one life from the other because they are there everywhere. For instance, I'll find a situation where I bump into somebody and immediately they give me messages about that person. And it could even be in Thailand where it's a social gathering and we're sitting there and I have to contain myself. But if it's somebody I know and they understand me, I'll say, you know what my situation is. Can I just chat to you briefly? This is what I'm being told, da 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 da. And then after that, I'll be fine. So it's never how do you live the two lives. It's one life intertwined, but you need to learn to work with your ancestors so that you work in a manner that doesn't expose them in a funny way.
Yeah, there's a lot of people are actually afraid to go Twasa because they are so involved in their worried about my career, what's going to do, it's going to change my life. Now I have to dedicate my whole life to, now my spirituality. What advice do you have for people that are afraid to get into it because of leaving their lifestyle behind?
The reality is that whatever life you say is yours will be changed. Your life is going to change. But it's not going to change to an extent where you forget who you are. It's a matter of how you embrace it and how you are able to have this, as I said, integrated life. Because it's not one or the other. I went through the same thing. I'm still a business professional. I've just come from a very important meeting this morning, which wasn't scheduled, but it's critical. So I went there. I'm going to a lunch with a business associate of mine. I'm sitting in front of you now. Later on at 4 o'clock, siyemfuleni. Siyokwenza ama-rituals emfuleni. So for me, it's just, you just take it in your stride. It's not, oh, now Sophia, you're going to do a matters. It's part of my diary. And that's why you'll find that my appointments are done in the office and it was done deliberately. So that It's not like ukuthi eyamadlozi ngapha eceleni ifihliwe eyasemsebenzini ngapha. And in fact, they showed it to me. But look at your diary. Tina, where do you have time for us if your diary is like this? Because it was full of a diary of my business interests, which they can block, by the way. So now that's why my diary, you'll see, it will have those amadlozi. Like today is a typical day where I swing from one. You saw me when I arrived. I was a business professional with my little briefcase in Yana with my iPad and my notebook. Go and change. This is me now. I'm going to change again to go to my business meeting. Later on, I'm going to change all these those are amadlozi. So it's a matter of what you feed into your head. I had the same attitude, but I can tell you now, based on the 10 years that I've been in this journey, the spiritual journey, I don't regret the fact that I decided finally to hit the calling. It wasn't by choice because now I lost everything. But do I have a choice? I didn't have a choice. I thought if I've lost everything, I may as well just go on and do what needs to be done.
And what is the most beautiful thing about African spirituality to you? What is it that you appreciate the most about heeding your calling and your life now?
It grounded me. You know, at a point in time, I was not even 30. We had this big fancy house, we had businesses, we had cars, children in private school, and you become very big headed. And you think that it's all about you, and that's how clever you are. And that's exactly what they said to me. They said, "Uthi nguwe lo wenza yonke le nto, we will show you who's doing it. And we're going to clean you out." And they did exactly that. So for me, it was that to bring back humility in my life, to ground me, but also to acknowledge the person that I am. I'm an African. And over and above that, I've got responsibilities that have been bestowed upon me. And I've been able to humble myself to say, Bantabadala, who I cannot even see, I'm prepared and I'm ready and I'm willing to do that which you want me to do in good. Only good causes. We don't want any negative energy. We don't want those amabi who want us to do bad. So I'm prepared and I'm willing to submit myself to say I'm willing to do that which is good on your behalf because you're not able to do it with your own hands and feet and eyes, etc. So that humility for me is very critical. In Tlonipo, respect. Where and the people about Cecilia are people who were friends, still friends, but who stop and forget who you are and just be Nomahlubi or and not be big headed. But also the other thing to understand that, as I said earlier on, when you've got people coming into the room, I always say to the children about trainer like I would, the person who comes in must leave feeling better than they did before they came in. So that thing of having empathy for other people. And that whole diligence yokuthi you really praise sithandaza ukuthi bantu benkosi siyabacela abantu bakubo, we know mistakes have been made, we know that there are certain things that should have been done differently, siyabancenela ukuthi baxolelwe. So that whole thing of forgetting about yourself but putting yourself in the other person's shoes and asking on their behalf for a reprieve.
And would you say we have that authority to remove ama negative spirits from, from, because it's such a spiritually charged practice? Do you have that authority to say it's only good and no negativity and
We are
no?
tired.
Mm.
You have to ask, as I say, whenever we phatha abantu abadala, siyavuma ukwenza umsebenzi, sicela abantu abadala basondele bonke, siyanicela, this is, we asking you to be with us, but we're only asking the good ones in the light. All the ones who have got negative energy, we don't want to deal with them. And there are rituals because they will sometimes seep through. There are rituals that you can do to be able to get rid of that negative energy. And again, I always say to people, it's not me. It's about my ancestors giving me the power, the authority, the instruction to be able to do that. And then that happens. And sometimes it's not successful. Then you need to keep doing it because sometimes you see one, umoya omubi. Then another one comes after that. So you cannot give up. You need to make sure that you keep on keeping on and asking them to give you wisdom, direction, and methods in terms of what you need to do to be able to help the other person.